Hi, and welcome to the Get Into Cloud podcast. My name is Coin. Today, we're going to be discussing how to approach money for the purposes of your career and understanding how to ramp up your earning potential. Now, the first thing to talk about and think about when it comes to money is Economics 101 lesson. In terms of what you're going to make, we have a lot of strategies and things we're going to talk about, but the market demand is going to have a big effect on what your current salary is and what your future salary is. So one of the things you need to consider is that the current market situation is going to be a huge driver on how much money you make or don't make. And when I like to use an example of if you were hiring someone to mow your lawn, for instance, if there's a kid in the neighborhood who has a lawnmower and he comes and mows your lawn, you may pay him $20 to mow your lawn, but maybe he doesn't do a great job, and he does a pretty good job, it's worth $20. But then if there are a lot of kids asking to mow their lawn, they may start to compete with each other and push down the price of mowing the lawn, and maybe you can get it done for $15 or less. But then if another kid comes along and he has a weed eater and he'll include lawn mowing and weeding, you might be willing to pay $25 as well. And then someone else who adds additional sorts of adds additional value through skills and things that they have to be able to improve what they're going to be able to offer you, you would see that price tend to increase. And it's the exact same way when you think about approaching your skills and abilities vis-a-vis the marketplace. If those skills are in demand, then you're going to be able to make more money. If there are less people in the marketplace that have that skill or ability, then you'll be able to make more money. And the opposite is also true. So one thing to consider right off the bat is that market forces will drive a lot of what your total capability to be able to make more and more money. So you have to keep your eye on the market demand, make sure you're responding to the market so that you can maximize the amount of money you're making for your skills and abilities. If you make a lot of money, if you make more money than you're making now, but then you turn around and raise your standard of living to meet that money, then you're really not making any progress. For all intents and purposes, you're making the same money as you were before. So one thing you need to consider is that important with strategies to make more money is strategies around financial literacy and understanding how to budget your money, how to invest your money, how to save money, how to give money, and how to do all those things appropriately. Making sure that you're investing the right way, you're not losing money through your investments, that you are doing things to get ahead. If there's a 401k match, you're applying to that as well, and those kinds of things that come with financial literacy. And that's a whole topic that you can research on YouTube and online to learn more about financial literacy. But it's very important to understand, like, once you get money, it's important to understand what to do with it, because you'll just end up losing it. And if you're anything like me, you likely grew up in a house where there wasn't a lot of money. Your parents didn't teach you these kind of financial literacy concepts because we were living paycheck to paycheck. My parents were my father hung sheetrock and my mother worked as a telephone operator. So there was no lessons about investing in the stock market and these kinds of things. And so that's going to be very important. And then living below your means is important. There's a concept called the hedonic treadmill, and that is that as soon as you get used to a standard of living, then it becomes normal to you, and then you need to push to the next level in order to feel kind of that level of excitement. So it's about backing away from that excitement, making sure that you're living below your means so that if the market does do something dramatic, then you have a cushion to be able to fall back on and make good decisions. So before I kind of get into how to maximize your pay, two important things to learn about from your perspective is going to be financial literacy, kind of ideas and goals, and very simplistic kind of stuff around financial literacy, and learning about the hedonic treadmill and making sure you have kind of your life in order in a way where you can live below your means so that you're making good financial decisions. One thing that has happened recently that will be an impact to how you make money in the market is pay transparency. And there are a couple of states in the United States that will post the ranges on all of their roles. So that's just something to be aware of if you're applying for roles in Colorado, and I think New York and California, a couple of states will post all of their ranges. A couple of companies make it a good practice to post the ranges as well. And so whenever you're applying to those companies, you will have some knowledge, right? Knowledge is power when it comes to increasing your pay and finding those roles. So it's something to consider. You'll see pay transparency on some, but you won't see it on others. Now, what is the expected ranges to make in the cloud? And here's the truth is that it depends on a lot of factors. One thing it depends on is where you're going to be working from, which state the company is based out of. States like California tend to have higher rates. If you're working for a company based out of Ohio, they will likely have lower pay than other companies as well. So depends on the company that you're working for, whether you're remote or driving into the company will matter, and then the tier of the role. Associate is going to make less money right now given the market. If you're a junior or associate, you may be making anything as low as 50 up to 100. It's a big range, but somewhere around the 65, 75, 80 range for an associate role would be within the expectations. As you move to a mid-tier role, you'll be looking in the upper 90s to the 110 range, but averaging around 100. And then as you get into senior, you're going to be, again, and we're talking just kind of a cloud engineer generic role, you're going to be in the 125 average up to maybe 150 or more. Now, if you have a specialty, if you're a cloud architect and you have a lot of certs, you might be able to command more money. If you are in data and analytics or AI ML, you'll be able to command more money. And if you're in, any other kinds of specialist roles, you'll be able to command more money. And so there's a lot of wiggle room in how much you're going to make at these roles. So that's something to keep in mind. But generally speaking, associate roles for something like a cloud engineer will be around 75, mid will be 100 and above, and then senior might be 125 to 150 and above, depending on what you're doing. So how can you use your levers to increase all those things? I think the number one thing is you need to learn how to negotiate. So negotiation is going to be the most powerful skill that you have to increase the amount of money that you're making. You need to know how to negotiate. You need to understand each step of this process, how to answer tough questions about how much money you're making now, how much money you want to make, what are your salary expectations. And there's lots of videos from recruiters and other folks that kind of cover all the details of answering those tough questions, how to answer them. I would say my advice is that you always couch those discussions in that you're enthusiastic for the role, that you want to save discussions about money to the end, but that you would ask for ranges up front so you understand whether the role is in the range for something that you're looking for. So that's my advice, is to talk in ranges at the beginning. Of course, you can give, if they give a range and the range is within what you're looking for, you can always acknowledge that as well. In some cases, people won't move on in into the process of the interview if you aren't happy with the range. And then you can push beyond the range if you have additional skills and abilities. And certainly if you have one or two other interviews that are happening at the same time, you can play those folks against each other. And all of that you need to learn from a negotiation perspective. I would encourage you to go online and look for folks in the IT sphere that are talking about how to negotiate for those roles and or for that pay. And don't take it personally. Nothing's personal, but you want to be a good negotiator so that you get maximum pay for the role. The second thing I would say that's important is you want to stay in that growth mindset. As I mentioned before with my lawnmower example, if you're just a kid with a lawnmower, you've only got one tool in your toolbox, you can really only sell yourself around one thing. But you could imagine a company that has a need for a DevOps engineer, but also has some data engineering needs as well. If you check both of those boxes, now they don't have to hire two people at $100,000. They can hire you at $125,000. And so now a mid-tier role that would typically maybe be $100,000, now you're getting hired for $125,000 because you can check 2 boxes for that company instead of 1. So you want to be constantly staying in that growth mindset, going beyond cloud engineering into DevOps, going beyond DevOps into data, going beyond data into AI ML, and continuing to grow your skill set, going deep on the skill sets you love, but still learning those other skill sets on a shallow. I think in a previous episode I mentioned the T-shaped skill set, and that's what we talk about. You go deep in the thing that you love, and then you learn lots of other stuff at a shallow level so that you can speak to it and potentially also tack those things on if they're interesting to a company that's looking to hire you. Another path for making additional money is to go into consulting. And now when you go into consulting, you're going to be billable. And so you are going to be charging, the company's going to be charging the company a high rate for your work. And therefore you're going to be making additional money as a result of being billable. You're going to show more value to the customer. In consulting is a little bit more difficult. You are going to be client facing. You have to be polished. You need good presentation skills. But here again, we're talking about the fact that you have more tools in your toolbox. You can do cloud engineering. You can present well in front of the client. You're not afraid to do presentations. You can develop PowerPoint presentations for folks. You can speak in front of a crowd and things like that. I think in another episode I mentioned going into Toastmasters is going to help your career, and this is where being a consultant, being able to present in front of folks is going to increase that earning potential. Even if you don't become a consultant, being able to present well and build a case for something and put it in front of executives, having that executive presence is going to up your capability within the company. Folks are going to see you and become familiar with you, and you're going to have much more gravitas, and will lead to promotions and additional pay raises. Another way you can increase your pay is to agree to travel. And travel is certainly tough. If you have a family or if you have a wife, you're going to be away from them a lot of time. But if you were potentially young or single and not worried about putting roots down at this time, travel is a good way to make additional money. Because it's hard to find folks that want to travel, then you can command additional money by agreeing to traveling. Traveling usually goes with consulting and things like that, so you can double up there and effectively have a lot of your housing and food paid for as a part of your traveling budget. And so you can save even more money, kind of sock it away, living below your means and doing all the things that we've talked about. It is, again, a unique position that folks have to be in to enjoy traveling, especially if you have a family, but some families and individuals are set up for that, and so it's an easy way to make additional money by agreeing to do that. Another possibility is to get into sales, and if you have a kind of sales personality but you're also into engineering, you could choose to do sales engineering or solution architecture in these kind of client-facing roles. These are going to come with additional stress, and as I've talked about these roles before, it's going to depend on the company how salesy they want their solution, their sales engineers to be. Some of them want them to be effectively just salespeople that are kind of technical. Some of them want them to be very technical but understand the sales process. But most want them to be kind of in the middle. When you are a solution architect or a sales engineer, you will typically have a quota, and so there's a lot more stress, but the upside is much higher. If you make your quota, you're going to get very large bonuses and make a lot of extra money for having that. It's similar to consulting. You need to have a client-facing role. You need to be able to ask probing questions and influence decisions, and you need to have a skill set from the sales side as well and understand how sales works and how to be integrated with that. The good news is that these folks turn over very fast because if you don't make your quota, typically you're going to be shown the door. Maybe there's a training period to try to get you up to speed. Maybe there's some additional work that's done, but by and large, sales folks live and die by their quota, and so they will hunt around for the company that's going to treat them right as well. And so you'll have opportunities, lots of opportunities in sales because folks tend to move around a lot there and no one takes it personally. So that's it. That's a number of things that you can do to increase your earning potential in IT. I'm not a salesperson. I've done some sales, so I've used that to my ability a little bit. I've done a little bit of travel. I've done a lot of consulting, and consulting is what I use to really increase my pay as well. Beyond that, and then of course, growing through staying in that growth mindset. To be honest, I'm not a great negotiator, and so I don't. Some of these things I don't feel right giving advice. There are folks that are probably much better at it than I am, but I love to learn new things, and that's one of the ways that I've tried to maximize the amount of money that I've made throughout the years. So good luck with that, and a Merry Christmas to everyone, and we'll talk to you again in the new year. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Get Into Cloud podcast. I created this podcast to help people just like you that want to start and accelerate their cloud careers. Please take the time to like, subscribe, click, follow, do all the things on whatever platform that you use to listen to this podcast. We want to spread the word so that everyone can know that there's a pathway for them to get into cloud. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for your help. Have a good day.